When you hear the name Steve Jobs, you probably think success, right? But his story, it's not this straight line to the top, not at all. It's actually a masterclass in, believe it or not, failure and resilience, and what happens when you have a vision you just won't let go of. This is, without a doubt, the greatest comeback story of our time.
So that brings us to the big question. The real puzzle of Steve Jobs. How does a college dropout who gets fired from his own company end up changing the entire world? I mean, he wasn't the perfect CEO. He didn't have the fancy degree. He had this massive public failure that would have ended most people's careers for good. So what was his secret? How on earth did he pull it off?
All right, so let's start at the beginning. You know how every epic tech story seems to kick off in a garage? Well, Steve Jobs' story is the classic example. But for him, that garage wasn't just a place to build stuff. It was literally the foundation for everything that came next.
And you've got to understand, Jobs didn't come from money or privilege. His adoptive dad was a machinist, and he's the one who really taught him about craftsmanship, you know? They'd spend hours in the family garage just tinkering with electronics. Plus, think about where he grew up. This was the place that was about to become Silicon Valley. So he's surrounded by all these engineers who are literally building the future. He just soaked up that whole culture of curiosity and innovation.
And being in that environment led him straight to this crucial partnership with Steve Wozniak, an absolute engineering genius. You see, Wozniak, he was the guy who could build the circuit boards like nobody's business. But Jobs, he was the visionary. He was the one who saw how to turn those circuits into a company that would change everything. So in 1976, right there in that garage, they started Apple. And they built the Apple II, which was really the first personal computer for the masses. This is where it all began.
But that incredible, meteoric rise? Yeah, it wasn't going to last. Just as fast as he went up, he was about to come crashing down. With all that success came an absolutely dramatic fall from grace. So in 1980, Apple goes public, and the result is just staggering. Get this, by the time he's just 25 years old, Steve Jobs is worth over $250 million. I mean, can you even imagine? He was the face of this whole tech revolution. And then, just 5 years later, something completely unthinkable happens. It's 1985. There are these huge power struggles with the board, a board he hired, by the way, and the Macintosh isn't selling as well as they'd hoped. And just like that, Steve Jobs gets forced out, kicked out of the very company he built from the ground up. Now, this was a massive public humiliation. Devastating. But years later, Jobs would actually say it was the best thing that ever happened to him. That quote you see. It's incredible, right? Because that huge failure forced him to grow up, to learn, and to basically hit the reset button and start all over.
So that kicks off what a lot of people call his wilderness years. But don't let the name fool you. He wasn't just wandering around lost. This was a time of intense building and learning, even though, success was definitely not coming easy.
He actually started two big things during this time. First up was NeXT, this company making really high-end computers. The machines themselves, they kind of flopped. But the software running on them, oh man, that software was a secret weapon, and it would become super important later. Then there was Pixar. He bought this tiny graphics division from George Lucas and just poured his own money into it for years. It was a total money pit, losing cash left and right, until 1995. That's when they released Toy Story, and, well, animation was never the same again.
Okay, so all those seeds he planted during those wilderness years, they were finally about to sprout. All that failure, all that persistence, it was all setting the stage for what is, I think you could argue, the single greatest comeback in the history of business.
Meanwhile, back at Apple, things were bad, really bad. By 1997, the company was in a total death spiral. They were bloated, had no clear focus, and were literally weeks away from going bankrupt. So, in this act of pure desperation, the board decides to buy NeXT. And yeah, the software was great, but let's be real, this was all about one thing. It was about bringing Steve Jobs back home.
And the moment he got back, Jobs did not mess around. He was absolutely ruthless. He slashed 70% of the product line, 70%, just to get the company focused again. He brought in this brand new discipline, and it was simple but crucial. Do just a few things, but make them insanely, impossibly great.
And that intense focus led to a string of products that, and this is not an exaggeration, changed the world. First up, the iMac in 1998. Remember all those boring beige computer boxes? The iMac was colorful, it was fun, it was personal. It wasn't just a computer, it was a statement piece.
Then 2001, the iPod. Think about the promise, 1,000 songs in your pocket. So simple, right? But that idea didn't just sell a gadget, it blew up the entire music industry.
And then came 2007. This is the big one. He gets on stage and introduces the device that would basically define the modern era, the iPhone. It was a phone, an internet device, and an iPod all in one. It completely changed mobile communication as we know it.
And to top it all off, the iPad, which literally created a brand new category of device, something right in between a smartphone and a laptop.
Wow, what a run, right? iMac, iPod, iPhone, iPad, this unbelievable streak of innovation cemented a legacy that's about so much more than just sales numbers. It was truly about a whole new way of thinking.
And at the absolute heart of it all was this one core belief. Jobs was completely obsessed with making technology feel, well, human. He didn't care about having the most gigabytes or the fastest processor on a spec sheet. He cared about the experience. What does it feel like when you hold it? Is it actually a joy to use? And that focus, that obsession, that's what created the legendary Apple customer loyalty.
And the impact of that way of thinking? It was just staggering. I mean, think about it. Steve Jobs didn't just build one successful company, he completely remade four separate global industries. You've got personal computing with Apple, animated movies with Pixar, the music business with the iPod and iTunes, and of course, mobile communication with the iPhone. It's just wild.
So, when you boil it all down, what are the lessons here? What can we take away from this incredible journey? Well, for one, that failure isn't just something to be afraid of. It's actually a key part of success. It proves that having a clear vision is way more important than having a fancy degree. It shows us that simplicity is incredibly powerful, and that really, none of it happens without just being persistent and having a real passion for what you do.
Ultimately, the story of Steve Jobs is just this powerful reminder of what's possible when you just refuse to accept things as they are. His whole mantra was, think different. He challenged all of us to do that. So now that you've seen how a massive failure can turn into the biggest triumph, and how one person's vision can literally change the world, the only question left is, what will you think differently about?